This is an article from Episcopal News Service. They had a resolution affirming goal of full communion with the United Methodist Church gets approved by the House of Bishops. So if you guys recall, at the General Conference in Charlotte of the United Methodist Church, they passed some legislation to um, be in full communion with the Episcopal Church. Episcopal Church, for their part, has not yet had their full meeting to approve such a thing, but on June 24th, the House of Bishops approved the next step forward toward full communion between the Episcopal Church and the United Methodist Church by adopting Resolution A049 as amended. The resolution states that General Convention, quote, joyfully anticipates advancing toward full communion between the two churches and encourages Episcopalians to learn more about these efforts over the next 3 years. The Episcopal Church currently is in full communion with 7 churches. I don't think I need to read the rest here. But what I did try and look up, I had seen recently that, was it here? There are people who are looking at the same potential thing with the Global Methodist Church and the Anglican Church in North America. If you don't recall this history, the Anglican Church in North America split off from the Episcopal Church when it went too far left. Very similar story between the Global Methodists and the North ACNA. So I've reached out to one of the ACNA leaders to see if he would speak with me. We're going to speak next week about the history of the split off of the ACNA and what precipitated that and how it's gone for them. I just saw recently, I think it's Jeff Walton at the IRD published an article showing that the ACNA is continuing to grow year over year in a time of decline for almost all other denominations. So I don't know how official it is, but there have been efforts to enter into full communion between the GMC and the ACNA, which, I'm GMC and I'm generally in favor of this. Ecumenism, that's the goal of helping denominations be in cooperation and communion with one another. That has been a goal that's been co-opted largely by the left, but it is biblical in its essence. Christ prayed that we would all be one as he and the Father were one, and I think it's a very admirable thing to do. But what we're seeing, I think, on the denominational level mirrors what we're seeing in lots of different local contexts where the liberal churches band together and the conservative churches band together. Or you can pick, progressive and orthodox, whatever. The terms don't matter so much as the idea that I'm saying is there are certain dispositions towards the holy texts and traditions received where there are those who take it seriously that all get together and they'll have their doctrinal differences. And then there are the liberal ones that we're all on the right side of history and we're going to work together with the churches that we've got. And so in my small rural town, there has been a kind of a split between the churches. And then we're going to see this on a denominational level as well, where for the most part, the large denominations got taken over by liberals, and they are now shrinking those denominations. And then evangelical conservatives left and started their own denominations, and they're broadly either holding fast or growing. And so you're going to find these groups have equality, and then you're actually going to see conservatives rise and liberal progressives fall apart and join together. So there were some during General Conference who were already hypothesizing that the United Methodist Church and the Episcopal Church would eventually join together because they have a bunch of money, but they're losing people, and one can kind of support the other in this time. So we'll see if they actually do that. As we're talking about Gabe here, his taste would be the wrong word. His ethos, and mine too, probably honestly, is much more high church oriented, much more liturgical, much more rooted aesthetically in the ancient church. And so as we talk about the ACNA and the GMC coming close together, I would really like that as well. I go back to the early Methodist history. John Wesley never meant to split. He did things that kind of inevitably went that direction, but I think his heart was for unity and revival within the Anglican Church, and I would love it if there were a future in which there was a coming together of Methodists and Anglicans that take the faith very seriously, and reclaim some of that original spirit of John Wesley. So I think that's something to pray about. If you don't know about the ACNA, I think that they are good to look at. And the interesting thing about them is, in the GMC, we largely, right now, if you average out all the worship experiences, uh, it's mostly charismatic oriented with some traditional stuff in the mix. I think that is inverted in the ACNA. I think they're largely high church in the ACNA, but there is a significant charismatic component or contemporary component. It's not all smells and bells for the ACNA, and in fact, I think they're kind of getting away from that. So we'll see. I want to be hopeful about what's possible now that we have kind of, at least for a time, been able to get away from cultural leftism, and we can now relatively unhindered pursue an agenda that's biblically based, and then hopefully defend ourselves from those who are going to get sick of being on a sinking ship and want to come be with us, but who are not really with us. So that's my concern going forward.